Mario Kart World!
Today, we're taking a look at Mario Kart World. Mario Kart World released with the Nintendo Switch 2 on its launch day, and it was the first main first-party Nintendo game to have come out on the console. Of course, it made a lot of sense, especially in my opinion, as obviously, you want a multiplayer game that a lot of people can play and join together and be able to have a lot of fun together. So I understood, even though despite there's a lot of debate whether they should have released World first or Bonanza, I was of the mind of they should have released Mario Kart World always first in the first place, but vice versa. Today, I want to explore everything that Mario Kart World does. The open world, the ambition that it took, its character roster, its tracks, its items, everything. We're going to take a look at what made them make Mario Kart World the way it did, and why I believe it's the most ambitious kart racer. Once again, today, we're taking a look at Mario Kart World. I first want to start this video with the premises of how this is an ambitious kart racer. No kart racer does what Mario Kart World did in its first attempt at this. You see, open world games has been a thing for pretty much since the Switch 1 was even born. It's been the thing that has pretty much taken over and dominated the industry within modern video games. But a kart racer seems kind of impossible. It seems a lot for a kart racer to try to handle, especially if you're the first to try to do it. Now again, Nintendo has already done open worlds in the past. They've done it with Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and just in general they've done open worlds just as a whole. Yeah, they've done hub worlds, but they've had experience with the open world genre, and so it was interesting to see them try to implement that in a kart racer. Mario Kart World definitely also feels a bit different than most of the other Mario Kart games, and I think a lot of that is really the open space of a lot of the tracks within this game, but also just getting from one track to another. You see, this is a free open world. You can really explore this in your own free will if you want to. It is really up to the player to make that choice. And the game even encourages this free will by giving a whole entire dedicated mode to this in free roam. Which, by the way, I want to talk about just real quick the menu, how they've set up all these modes, and what my personal opinion are on all these modes right from the get-go. Let's start with Grand Prix. Obviously every kart racer is going to have a Grand Prix. You pretty much go through 4 different tracks, try to see how you can place in them against CPUs or whatnot, and just try to get first place as many times as you can. You're trying to go for the gold in any of these. And you also get to choose how fast the cars are going. Now, Grand Prix has obviously been around since the first Mario Kart in the SNES. Obviously it was going to be a staple here, but the way they handled it was interesting. You see, obviously they have an open world that they have to accommodate to, and the way that they pulled it off in this game was that you pretty much have one track going to another track. So the first track you start off is pretty much the starting point. You do a normal 3-lap race within that track. However, when you're transitioning to a second track, you're then going from what is an intermission course, which a lot of people have a little criticism that these are straight paths to just go to another course, or they're curvies, so they're sort of like you're going back and forth and you're swerving around in these areas. Now, some of these intermissions are actually very good, and I can even point out which ones are good. However, there are some that I do feel like they could have been handled a bit better, I won't lie, and I feel like a lot of that really has to do with, you just having to accommodate for this open world. This is the first attempt we have seen something like this for a kart racer, and obviously Nintendo is probably the company to do this. They're probably the publisher to try to get this done, but still, at the end of the day, there are some that are pretty much bare bones. Some of them are very straight lineage, and just in general, to get it out of the way, I love the regular tracks in this game. The intermissions are cool, depending on the intermission, but not all of them really work. Now, that's going to get me right into this topic. I love the regular tracks of Mario Kart World, and there are some great intermissions in this game, don't get me wrong. There's like 200 intermission tracks, which are just crazy. But even with that said, the intermission courses, depending on which one it is, some of them are a bit flawed. And even with so, that's the reason why I said it makes a big difference, because this game feels more open-ended, it feels like there's a lot more space than your typical kart racer, and so I think they also accommodated that with the upscale in terms of the player count in every race. Obviously, Mario Kart is known for its chaotic fun, right? But how about we up this scale in terms of how many players can be on the screen at once? Mario Kart World has more players on screen than any Mario Kart game before. Having 24 players at the same time really makes this game feel a lot of chaotic and fun, and just in general, I think is what makes this game special. Like, I really do think having the 24 players all playing at once really makes this game feel special and unique, because now you're trying to deal with more things at once than previous Mario Kart games, so it even feels more satisfying when you get a first place. But back to Grand Prix, like I was talking about earlier. Grand Prix is really great. You do 4 tracks, pretty much intermissions in between from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and vice versa, and you're pretty much trying your best to try to get the Golden Cup, or at least a podium placement by the end of your run in these. And also, you can unlock characters in this. Like, for example, you can unlock Donkey Kong if you do the Mushroom Cup, you can get Daisy if you do the Flower Cup, and you keep getting characters when you complete more cups. Grand Prix is very good in this game. Obviously, they implement the intermissions, which I know a lot of people have criticisms for. I don't really mind it a lot personally because it is just Grand Prix, but I do see where people are coming from. But just in general, I really love the tracks in this game, and I do think that they are a lot of fun. There's also Knockout Tour, which has been the new thing that they added to this game, and Knockout Tour is probably one of the best things Nintendo has ever added to a multiplayer game that I have ever seen, or just in general something that they've added in any of their video games. Knockout Tour is essentially sort of like a very fast battle royale where there's pretty much 24 players at the start of a race, just like a typical race in Mario Kart World, but there's a twist. When you're getting from one track to another, or depending on the lap, like going from one lap to another, there will be an elimination process in each lap interval. So there could be 24 races starting, and then it goes to 20, and then it goes to 16, and then it keeps going until the final 4 racers remain on the final lap, and then whoever wins that is, of course, the winner of the Knockout Tour. And honestly, these are very cool, especially because what I loved is that they didn't just do the standard Grand Prix routes, they actually did their own unique routes for the Knockout Tours, and I think that actually worked out a lot better for this game than I think they even knew that what they're doing and how capable it was, just of how great they were able to achieve the heights that they were able to do. And honestly, I really love the focus of the Knockout Tour. Like, the whole premise of the mode, how chaotic it can be, and honestly, this is what makes Mario Kart, and this is like the perfect mode to put in a game like this, especially when you add on all these different factors, like people need to be aware of items, other racers, especially when you add in other factors, like people need to be aware of other racers, people need to be aware of items in the track. So it adds a lot of stuff to the game that, in my opinion, Knockout Tour is just the perfect mode to add to a game like this. And I think Nintendo even knew it too. They knew it was gonna really pay off very well for them because of the fact that you can also play Knockout Tour single player. Obviously, it's a main mode that a lot of people have been playing in multiplayer because that's what a lot of people love. And just in general, I think it's really what makes Mario Kart World that special to me. In terms of a game that really makes it a unique experience compared to the other Mario Kart games. Because Mario Kart World, one thing that I'll definitely note it for is its Knockout Tour mode and what it was able to bring in terms of the chaoticness that this game brings and how much fun engagement I can get from the game just playing this mode. Now, this also brings me to the next mode that I want to talk about, which is Free Roam. Now, I'm just like the next guy. I think Free Roam was the correct choice for this game to freely explore this entire open world at the scale that it is and make it feel like a grand adventure. It was the perfect choice. However, there are some things that I do want to say about the open world just in general. One, I personally love just going around the open world and honestly doing the P-Switch challenges. around the open world, there are these P-switch challenges that pretty much they're just, you know, standard challenges that you can do to pretty much test your skills within the game and also the environment of the open world as a whole. And I do appreciate them, you know, whether it's going through rings or a time trial one or beating other racers at a certain point or just in general or doing wall tricks, wall jumps, you know. The game appreciates when you do that stuff, you know, and I really do love the free roam P-switch challenges. Now again, you're just doing them for aesthetic pleasure. There's not really a reason to do these, you're just doing them to pretty much say you completed all the P-switches in a certain area or something. And it's also very hard to track what P-switches you've done in certain areas, because obviously every track has a certain amount of P-switches, and even in the intermissions, just around the open world as a whole, in certain areas and, you know, different places, there are any infinite amount of P-switches that you can find, but it's hard to track in terms of if you've done them all in a certain area or whatnot. You know, they track, for example, like you hitting these sort of item box holograms that are all around like the floor and the walls and stuff in these tracks, but they for some reason don't do the P-switches until I think a recent update where they actually added it in recently. So fair, but still, you know, it's something that is a bit odd about it, that they added these things into free roam, and these are things that should be able to be easy to track, but instead they kind of made it very difficult for the player to even know their progression on where they are. And I think that's a bit of a bummer, especially when, as someone who loves the free roam mode actually, like I really love going into it so I can get my character costumes and all that stuff, which we will talk about that. I still feel like, just as a whole, the free roam could have done so much more, and I think it could have been really impactful in terms of a single player mode for content wise, but I really feel like you're just going around, and in general I feel like the most that you'll get from free roam is just going around so you can get your costumes for certain characters or unlocking other characters in certain ways. I feel like that's really all you're doing this for, and you know, I love that it's here, and I love that there are things to do, like also collecting coins, which they also don't make that very easy to know how your progression of that is. Like, I just wish the progression on these things was easy, and again, it's a bit of a knock on that, but I will say I still love the free roam mode. I still love to go back to it, just explore this open world, feel it as a comfort, and just also just to be able to learn the tracks. That's another thing that's great about the free roam, is that you're actually allowed to go to every single one of these tracks and pretty much be able to learn and train them. So you're able to practice on these, see what are, you know, the most beneficial shortcuts, what's ways that you can take an advantage on the track. You know, those are the type of things that I really love, that at least in Mario Kart World you're able to do in the free roam mode. Time trials are pretty standard, but I do love that obviously people can compete for the best times. That's another thing that I do like about World, is that in time trial, it's as what you expect for a time trial. You know, you go through around the track, you see how your time is, and pretty much you're trying to get the best record that you possibly can on each track. Pretty much you can use free roam as a base to pretty much practice and train, and then time trials really where you do the real thing to see how good you are really in these tracks. And of course, you can also compete with other players globally, see who has the best time in each track, and see what other new shortcuts and advantages you find that could be able to help a run. Obviously, I actually really love time trial for this game, because I think it's really rewarding, especially when you know you could pull these off also regularly online. So again, really fun, really great, and I really do recommend people play this game, especially the time trial mode, whenever they can. Now let's just talk about online just as a whole. Online is a lot of fun, man, let me tell you. I've had some of the greatest gaming segments I have had in recent history, really thanks to a lot of Mario Kart World's multiplayer. Every time I get on and play with some of my friends and stuff, I really just have so much enjoyment and so much fun time just being able to continuously go back into this game and race each other and just go crazy at each other at any point, you know, especially when I just play publicly online as well. You know, you can make your public and private lobbies however you see fit, and it's just, I love that accessibility to just be able to do that. Now, there's one thing I want to talk about. Mario Kart World, a month into its release, did have an update where people where Grand Prix before used to be where you could pretty much do the tracks without the intermissions. However, the way they did the update pretty much almost forced / guaranteed that players were gonna do intermissions, which obviously raised a lot of alarm. because I feel like people should have that access, that choice, to be able to not do intermissions if they do so please. However, this game did force it down people's throats, which, I mean, it is what it is, sadly, but thankfully we did get an update right around when another kart racer released, ironically. But yeah, they did update it when another kart racer was releasing, and now it is fixed. From what I know from my experience that I've been able to go back into the game and be able to play it however I want to, and you know, just in general, I really do appreciate what Mario Kart World is online, as it's just so much fun, especially when you do Grand Prix without the intermissions and when you do Knockout Tour. Holy shit, Knockout Tour online is some of the craziest chaotic gameplay I've ever had in a video game in quite a while. So it really makes it worth the while to play this game online. It's a lot of fun, very engaging, and just playing with other players and getting that satisfying first place if you ever do, which by the way is very difficult, you know, it's just super rewarding when you get that chance. Now, we've talked about all the modes, but let's talk about pretty much other things that this game has to offer. For example, I want to talk about the character roster. The character roster in Mario Kart World is really interesting and really different than other Mario Kart games before it. I mean, when I look into this roster, obviously you have your who's who of the Mario franchise. You know, you're gonna have Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, Yoshi, Bowser, Wario, Waluigi, Pauline of course would be here, the baby characters, you know, a lot of them actually, baby Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, and even a baby Rosalina. You have Toadette, who has been popular for so long. Obviously you have Shy Guy, you have Nabbit, Piranha Plant, Hammer Bro, Monty Mole, Goomba. You know, a lot of these characters that really make this game a whole lot of fun. And of course, that's a great base starting roster for a game when you go into it. You know, when you look at it from the offset, it's pretty much just your standard Mario characters that you know and love, with also a lot of enemies from across the franchise that are all in one roster. And what I love is that they also added the Moo Moo Meadows cow, which I thought was a great touch, especially for this game. You know, characters like the Sting Bee, you have Snowman, the Penguin, which I know a lot of people love using, and just in general, you know, they're great characters. And just like I said, you know, characters that you unlock through different cups. For example, like you get Donkey Kong if you clear the Mushroom Cup, Daisy if you do the Flower Cup, Rosalina through the Star Cup, Blackatoad through the Shell Cup, and just, it continues on. You know, every cup you get a character. You know, Birdo, King Boo, and Bowser Jr. as well. You get them through the Grand Prix Cups. So the game just allows you to also get more characters despite the very massive roster that this game has. And I think that's a lot of the benefit of Mario Kart World, you know? They actually allowed themselves to add a lot of these enemies from other games to really expand the roster as a whole. Now, obviously, there's some characters that I wish that were in this game. You know, I would love to have a lot more Donkey Kong representation, you know, especially since Donkey Kong is the only character in here, you know, whereas Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, shit, even Cranky Kong, Funky Kong, of course, would be very nice to have, but, you know, we are working with what we have here. Now, even with me saying that, there's still another gripe that I do have that also comes with the character roster. Now, of course, like I said, the character roster is fantastic, and I actually do like it a lot. However, there is one thing with it, and that's the way how you unlock some of these characters. The only way you can unlock some of these characters is by having the Kamek item when you're racing in a certain track, and Kamek uses his ability during his item usage to be able to transform you into another character, and that's how you unlock some of them. Remember, this is randomized, and it really depends on the location that you're at in order to get Kamek to give you that certain character. So pretty much, you can be playing this game for like 50 to 60 hours and still have yet to have every single character that this game has to offer because of that boundary that the game placed on itself to do that. And I feel like that's really what cooks this whole character roster as a whole, is because the character roster is good. You know, it's very different than other Mario Kart games or in any kart racer just in general. It's super different. But what I will say is that I feel like this way of just forcing us to have Kamek, I really feel like, you know, we should have had more agency in the ways we do unlock more characters as a whole. And I feel like it really holds the game into a certain hold that I really wish it would get out of. Now, I did find out that during the update when another kart racer is also releasing, that they did in fact update the game to where there's a UFO thing that you can do in free roam, and if you pretty much have another person or if you have another player with you, or you just have, you know, other racers going around in the free roam, you can eventually pretty much abuse this, so that way you can get the other unlockable characters and make the process go faster. So that is a way you can get more characters, but even still, even with this great addition to get the rest of the roster, it's still a tad bit, you know, work and effort that really has to go into getting all these characters in the game, and I just feel like it should have just been made easy. You know, make us unlock them through like a mode or some kind or something like that, because I really do feel like this forces our hands to trying to do it a certain way that the game wants in order for us to get all the characters. Now, obviously, there's some great pulls in here, though. Let me continue through the character roster. We have Pianta from Delfino Isle, you know, from Super Mario Sunshine. They're in this game. You have Rocky Wrench, which is interesting. Conkdor's in this game, and it's just funny to see him drive around in a car. Chargin' Chuck is in this game, which I've always loved that enemy across the Mario franchise, so I'm very happy that's in the game. Of course, like I mentioned, we have Donkey Kong here, who I actually want to go into a bit of detail with, because Donkey Kong has a new model that started with Mario Kart World. He has this model as well in Donkey Kong Bonanza, pretty much 1-to-1, and it's just interesting to see Donkey Kong go with this new model and new approach, and I really love it. I love the look of Donkey Kong, and I think that really helps, you know, moving forward with, hopefully, what will start, you know, the next Donkey Kong era thanks to the Switch 2. Now, another thing that this game offers is character costumes. Depending on the tracks and stuff, you can unlock a new costume for these characters. This is something that I mentioned earlier when talking about free roam, that you can abuse free roam for, or you can go around the whole open world to unlock these other costumes, you know. Of course, specific characters like Mario will have all of them, while other characters were a bit short-handed on this. For example, Donkey Kong only has one alternate costume, and Pauline also only has one alternate costume, and I feel like that's a bit crazy, especially Donkey Kong, considering Donkey Kong is a big name in the Mario franchise, that's a big character in the franchise, and I feel like him only having one alternate outfit is pretty surprising. I also feel like as a whole, I get the enemies and stuff, but I also feel like they picked and chose some interesting, you know, outfits for certain characters. Like, I feel like all of these characters could have had all these costumes, and I feel like it wouldn't have been an issue. So I'm very curious what made Nintendo go this route where some characters have certain outfits and stuff. Now, to be fair, I do love a lot of these costumes. You know, you have the touring costume, which looks dope. I really love the Dune Rider one, the cowboy one, the sightseeing one. The aviator looks cool, and the all-terrain one definitely feels like a great one as well. You know, a lot of these costumes are really great, but I did wish there was more, especially for specific characters as a whole, like Donkey Kong, like Pauline. I think Rosalina could have gotten more, you know, maybe some of the enemies like Bowser Jr. could have had more. But, you know, as a whole, the costumes are great. They also make things different for each player. You know, every player either can go with the standard outfit, they can go with the costume of their choosing. You know, every single racer will have a different approach to what character and how they also have as an outfit, and I think that's great to allow us to have this, you know, accessibility to pretty much choose our character, choose whatever they want to wear, and then also whatever cart they want to have. Which, by the way, that helps with the transition to the next segment of this video, the carts. Now, I want to get through this segment pretty quickly, as I feel like, you know, it's pretty easy to get through in terms of as a whole, but let's talk about it. Pretty much, for me, I feel like Mario Kart World really does well with the carts this time. You know, obviously in Mario Kart 8, you pretty much had to choose your kart parts to pretty much try to make things, you know, put together, and obviously with that comes a meta. You know, people already know, you know, what's the great customizable options, what's the correct parts to put together to make a very good kart for races. But Mario Kart World just goes the standard approach. The cart is right there, it has its stats, you pick and choose what cart you want, and by the way, this game has so many carts. You are continuously unlocking carts the more you get through this game. It is insane how many there are in this game. And I love it. I mean, there's so many different carts, so many different capabilities that are to be had with these carts. You know, there's so many different advantages with every single different specific cart. It allows for a lot of freedom in terms of how you want to choose and how you want to go about, specific characters with specific karts. You are pretty much the decider of how things are going to go in the race for you. And also, I love to poke fun at using Mario with the standard kart, because ironically that actually works out so well. It's very interesting for me. I actually really do well a lot with that, combination. So yeah, I just wanted to touch base pretty much on the karts just like that. Now I really want to get into in depth what this game has to offer when it comes to its tracks. The tracks of Mario Kart World are straight up great choices. Now obviously some are better than others, but I really do think, looking back and, having a lot of hours on this game, and being able to play these tracks multiple times on multiple different occasions, I really do feel like I can say that Mario Kart World has a really great track list for what it has. Taking a look at some of the tracks, looking at Mario Brothers Circuit, which is the main track of the game, that track is really great as a starting track. And I also really love the music here. It's a perfect beginning track for a game. This is also part of the Mushroom Cup from the Grand Prix, which I guess is the way I should honestly go about these tracks. The second course in the Mushroom Cup is Crown City, this massive open city that you pretty much drive around, and it has a lot of great detail, but also just in general, it feels like it has so much scope in terms of what is possible in the open world and what this open world was able to give to Mario Kart World. I think Mario Kart World definitely benefited with the open world when it has tracks like this. Whistletop Summit is a really interesting track where it's mainly just rail grinding for the most part. It's pretty much letting the player use their skills up to this point of rail grinding and wall jumping to see how they do. And it's pretty much the track where the game pretty much tests your skill in terms of rail grinding so far in the game. So if you know how to use that skill set properly, then you're pretty much going to do well on this track every time. DK Spaceport is one of my favorite tracks in this game, primarily because it is based off of the original Donkey Kong arcade game and the way it's set up, and I really do love the ending of that track. It also has so many laps because of how much of a mountain climb it pretty much is as a track. I really do enjoy this one. There's also a lot of tracks coming back from former games, which I'll mention really quickly. Desert Hills from Mario Kart DS, Shy Guy Bazaar from Mario Kart 7, Wario Stadium from Mario Kart 64, Airship Fortress from Mario Kart DS, DK Pass from Mario Kart DS, Sky High Sundae from Mario Kart 8 Booster Course Pass, Wario Shipyard from Mario Kart 7, Koopa Troopa Beach from Super Mario Kart, Peach Beach from Mario Kart Double Dash, Dino Jungle from Mario Kart Double Dash, Moo Moo Meadows from Mario Kart Wii originally, Choco Mountain from Mario Kart 64, Toad's Factory from Mario Kart Wii, and Mario Circuit from Super Mario Kart. All of these retro tracks, all implemented into this game, all really adapted very well into this game. They've all transitioned very well, and just in general, I really do think they were handled with care within this game. They all were brought back with and handled with care, and some of them I even think are better than their original counterparts, which is really a great thing to say for something like this. Now obviously with these retro tracks, there is the elephant in the room in my opinion, and that is just Koopa Troopa Beach. Now honestly, I know what they were going for in this track. But once again, I have to say, this track is just barely anything going on, really. And mainly what makes this track stand out is really the item pulls, which, by the way, there's barely any item boxes in this track. It's just a complete circle going around. I feel like they was trying to do a baby park, I guess, with this when they try to bring this track back. But even so, while beautifully looking, it's still just bare bones in terms of what's possible on a racetrack here. And honestly, there are just better retro tracks. Mario Circuit from the same game was brought back in this game, and in my opinion, I think Mario Circuit is just leaps and bounds better than what Koopa Troopa Beach was able to pull off in this game. Sky High Sundae is the only track from the Booster Course Pass in Mario Kart 8, and honestly, I know a lot of people had conflicting opinions about this track being in this game, but I gotta say, they nailed it. Sky High Sundae is probably one of my favorite tracks in this game. Moo Moo Meadows will always stand out to me. This track always, I love the aesthetic, I love the design of everything around here. Just in general, going around this farm pretty much, and all the cows and stuff, and even the music. Which again, the music here, it's Moo Moo Meadows that we know and love. Toad's Factory is also a great pull to bring back, especially for a game like this. And obviously, I still do think the original is better than this one, but Mario Kart World's edition of Toad's Factory is still really good, and the music still slaps. But the last retro track I really want to bring up is actually DK Pass. I really love the way DK Pass looks, and I think DK Pass is one of the tracks that really show the power of the Nintendo Switch 2. Of course I want to bring that up real quick because Mario Kart World is the first game to release on the Nintendo Switch 2 first party wise. And DK Pass really shows the power of the Switch 2, showing how beautifully pleasant this area looks as a whole and as a track. This track is also one of my favorites, mainly because of the graphical look. Now of course I want to get into some more original tracks from this game. Starview Peak I really find interesting despite there being way too many water sections for my liking. Peach Stadium is a very interesting stadium track, and I do love that it's pretty much essentially around Peach's castle, which I think was honestly pretty creative and a clever idea for a track. Dry Bones Burnout has a lot going on, and I really do love a lot of the lava aesthetic pretty much of this game. Faraway Oasis I thought was pretty interesting for a track in Mario Kart World, especially when Faraway Oasis, has a lot of these animals, lurking around, and, it's supposed to be like sort of like a safari of kinds, but really it's a very interesting track, and I really do love it despite me feeling like it's a bit short. And I really do love this track actually. And finally I want to bring up Great Question Mark Block Ruins. This track is probably going down as one of my top 3 favorites in this game, primarily because I just really love the whole idea around this track. You pretty much go around right through the question mark block, and then you're pretty much going around the clouds and all these high areas within the track, and pretty much you're going through all the high areas of this track. The track is very fast in terms of when it finishes. I think this is a 3-lap track is really great. Boost Cinema is great, but it does also feel like another one of these tracks that ends very short. You pretty much go through the cinema and then you're right out as soon as you possibly can. However, I do love the aesthetic of this track, the way it looks, and also the way they've used the colors here, just making it feel like you're just pretty much bursting through a cinema of any kind. But the last 2 tracks I want to talk about are the 2 best I really saved for last. This game's Bowser's Castle is pretty insane for the most part. And fuck, I really do think it might be up there as one of the best Bowser's Castle stages in all of Mario Kart. This one has so many chaotic turns, so many interesting pathways to take, and just in general, it's the type of track that is going to have a lot of chaotic frenzy, which really stands out for me. Bowser's Castle is really one of those ones in terms of a great track and level design. But the last track that I saved is a track that obviously is a staple of Mario Kart. It's one of the things everybody thinks about when they think about Mario Kart. It's the thing that always stands out from these games, and it's the true final test of everything you've learned throughout the game. I'm of course talking about Rainbow Road. This game's Rainbow Road to me really got me emotional the first time I played it, and I really do mean that. It's pretty much a full-fledged test of everything you've learned from this game, all in one. There are driving sections, there are flying sections, and there are water sections. But most importantly, Rainbow Road in this game, to me, feels like a cultivation of a celebration of the Mario Kart franchise. They really made this track feel grandiose in terms of scale, the level design is impressive, and just in general, Rainbow Road here just feels special and heartwarming at most. While yes, it's still crazy and chaotic, it really feels like the perfect blend of everything that Mario Kart World had to offer, as well as being the perfect final track for the game, as typical of Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road is supposed to feel special. It's supposed to feel like it's on a higher scale than most of the other tracks in this game. When you ask a lot of people in every single Mario Kart game what's one of their favorite tracks, they always will point to the Rainbow Road of that Mario Kart game. I'm happy to say that Mario Kart World absolutely delivers in that aspect, while also feeling like probably by far my favorite track in this game. Rainbow Road is really that good in this game. And that's a lot to say, because there are a lot of great tracks in this game. But when you feel of this scale, how much longer Rainbow Road is a track compared to every other track in this game, Rainbow Road is on a scale of its own. And honestly, it makes me feel like I'm in a special place as a video game player. Yes, Rainbow Road in this game really means that much to me. I've played a shit ton of Mario Kart growing up, and man, this fucking rules. Now obviously, that's the track list of this game, and Rainbow Road is a perfect blend of everything like I've said. It's probably up there as my favorite track in this game, and one of my favorite tracks of all time in Mario Kart history. But there is still one thing we need to talk about when it comes to this game, and that's pretty much the new additions of gameplay that they added to this game. In Mario Kart World, they added pretty much a trick starter that you can do. Pretty much if you hold the ZL and ZR buttons, you can pretty much do an automatic trick, allowing for a fast boost at any point in time when you're racing. I do this to try to pretty much keep up in momentum when I'm in the lead, or to try to keep up with the pace of the rest of the racers. The other thing they added was wall jumps and rail grinding in this game. In Mario Kart World, some of the most impressive and insane tech in a kart racer I have ever seen has been pulled off by multiple people, especially with these new additions of gameplay. It is absurd what people have been able to find in terms of advantages and shortcuts within this game. The way how people have used wall jumps to their advantage, using rail grinding for a specific amount of boosts, and just how as a whole using the trick starter, while also trying to take advantage of some of the new things that this game has added. In Mario Kart and former games, there was gliding and underwater sections, but this game does a bit of a twist to those. The gliding is pretty much just typically going flying through the air. It's very standard actually in this game, it's very bare bones. But the water sections are very interesting and a bit conflicting for me. The control of the water section feel a bit too stiff, and at times I feel like the turning of them is way too haphazard for my liking. I would have loved it if it could just be the exact same turning as when you're on land. I feel like they could have done that. However, the turning when you're on water is just a little bit abysmal in my opinion. However, of course, on land is perfect. Driving around pretty much, or just racing in general in Mario Kart World is a lot of fun, especially when you're on the ground. And I feel like a lot of these new mechanics add so many different ways to really go through courses, to take your advantage in any of these tracks. I have managed to see some impressive pull-offs from certain players when it comes to Mario Kart World because of how much practice and use of the skills to be able to master some of these new mechanics within Mario Kart World. It really makes this game special, and in my opinion, is really the heart and soul of this game, and what's going to differentiate itself from the previous Mario Kart games prior. Mario Kart World tries to blend everything that it learned from its predecessors to try to make it its own, while also adding new creative ideas to really level the playing field in so many different aspects. That is what is going to make Mario Kart World stand out for me when it comes to the rest of the Mario Kart franchise. Again, like I've mentioned earlier throughout this whole video, the gameplay of Mario Kart World is so much fun, and I can see a lot of people feeling that same way the more and more they play this game. It really stands out as a whole, and I really do think that it really adds a lot of different ways and different plans that you could be able to make to try to get through these tracks. Mario Kart World has such a big open world, and like I said, the connectivity of all these tracks and where they all are on the map was a pretty good structure for a game like this in its first attempt for this amount of ambition for a kart racer. And that's what I think Mario Kart World is. It's one of the most ambitious kart racers I've ever played, if not the most ambitious I've ever played. It added a whole entire open world to a kart racer just for the fun of it, to completely differentiate itself from the games prior, like I've mentioned. Again, and this was a steep hill Mario Kart would have to climb. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is deemed as probably one of the best kart racers of all time. And for good measures. The character roster is very good, especially after the booster course pass. There's so many fantastic tracks, and just in general, it's pretty much the perfect Mario Kart game when I think about it. So, of course, a lot of the discussion after Deluxe had all the booster course pass content and whatnot, people were considering and wondering, what could the next Mario Kart game even possibly be able to do to try to even compare itself to this sort of kart racer? Well, it was an attempt, and what do I think? I'm still pretty up in the air on how I feel, to be honest. I feel like Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are by far the two best Mario Kart games of all time. And while I do think World is getting up there in that level for me, there are still some flaws, like I've mentioned in this video, that I feel like the game could have improved upon with very easy fixes. And not only that, some of the tracks are short. The intermission courses sometimes, while some are great, some of them are very lacking. The free roam could have had more going on for it, especially with how hard it is to track your progression with some of this stuff. I just really wanted easy progression, man. And also as a whole, while the track list is great, it's like I've mentioned, some of them are short, some of them are longer. Their intermissions are really just around for the ride and to get in the way most of the time. And also, free roam, while a great addition, and a mode that I still personally love despite the mentions I've surfaced earlier, I still do feel like Mario Kart World could have done more. Mario Kart World is still a great game, don't get it twisted, and don't get me wrong. I just love to pinpoint and criticize where I think the game could have done a lot better, and I honestly think these are easy fixes that they could do with simple updates and patch fixes. Like I said, this is Nintendo we're talking about. They are very capable of doing these things. The other thing that's very strange to me when it comes to Mario Kart World is when comparing it to other kart racers that we know are in the big three of kart racers in this game, which I'm going to mention right now, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds and Kirby Air Riders. Those games we already know full well of their roadmaps. Mario Kart World, we still have yet to hear anything about DLC plans, any more characters being added to the roster, any more tracks being added to the track list in this game. It's very absurd and bizarre, especially with how much they promoted this game and how ambitious it feels. It would feel pretty wrong to not have any DLC for a game like this. And I know I'm right. A lot of people have already been asking, especially with the Nintendo Directs that have came after this game has released, with hope that there'd be any indication for any DLC or any roadmap of anything for the future of this game to help keep it alive, as well as be able to give a reason as to why people should be brought back. I'm still going to come back regardless. I mean, it's Mario Kart. I'm going to hop in then and there to enjoy and have my and have my fun when I need it. However, I still need to know what this game's plans are for the future. It is very weird that we have yet to know any DLC plans. However, I am still optimistic we will get it. Especially because this is Mario Kart we're talking about. One of the best sellers each time for Nintendo every time they release the game. I am confident that whenever next year, at some point in 2026, we will get DLC plans being discussed, and it will be revealed to us in any time. However, there's one more thing I want to talk about Mario Kart World before I get into my last segment in this video, and that's, I really just want this game to be able to continue to live through. Obviously, it launched in the launch date of this console. It is still continuing to sell well. New people are being exposed and having great experiences with this game. And as a whole, I really do think it's a fun experience and a very great game. However, I still really want my DLC for this game, and I really do think it's warranted. People out there, well, I paid the Switch 2 bundle, so I paid a cheaper price for this game. There were people out there that paid $80 for this game. This is one of the higher priced games in the market right now. And I feel like it would make a lot of sense for us to at least have DLC plans, to know what the future of the game has content-wise, and for them to be free. especially with how high priced this game was. Kart races should not be this expensive. But it's all up to Nintendo to decide, and I really do hope they make the correct choice here. However, there's still one more thing I want to talk about in Mario Kart World. I wanted to save the best segment for last within this video. We've talked about gameplay mechanics, we've talked about the modes this game offers, we've talked about pretty much character rosters and the whole track and all the tracks that are in this game. We've talked about everything. But there are two last segments I want to talk about. The first one is items. Yeah, you think I would go through a whole Mario Kart video without mentioning items? You'd be mistaken. Of course we're going to talk about items. Items pretty much make Mario Kart. They are essentially the bread and butter on how races are going to go for you. They completely can change the trajectory of every race, depending on what items you get. So let's go through them. Obviously there are standard 1-item boxes and double item boxes. I tend to always go to double item boxes because obviously they're advantageous. You can get coins, which obviously collecting as many coins as you can till the max will obviously make your cart a bit faster. There's actually the dash food bags. These are items you pretty much see if you ever see Yoshis around in the open world or in the tracks that you're racing in. They can also help you unlock more costumes. But here are the real items in this game. Let's talk about the reoccurring items here, and let's talk about some of the differences I've discovered when playing this game. Obviously the shells are still here, but the blue shell in this game has been really damning, I'm not gonna lie. The blue shell does so much harm for whoever's in first place, and the stun afterwards when you get hit really lasts. Trust me, the blue shell has gave people nightmares in past games, but I feel like in this game especially, it has gave complete trauma for some people who are racing. The Mega Mushroom makes its return here, which has been a while and it's been absent for quite a long time, and I'm very happy it's back. It's also one of the better items when trying to cut through grass and playing fields to try to level the playing field and trying to catch up with the rest of the race. The star is here, and it does okay, but I don't think it has lasted as long as it did in previous games. The super horn in this game is really overpowered if you know how to use it correctly. Along with the mushroom in this game, if you boost / use the super horn correctly, you can pretty much take down the blue shell. And also just any projectile that is coming to you, you can pretty much stop it then and there. The super horn is very OP in my opinion. Lightning is in this game, but I don't think it occurs as much in my opinion as other games does. The hammer is a very interesting item to have brought back. The bullet bill I don't think lasts so long as it did in other games. I really do feel like in terms in other games, the bullet bill was way better than it is in World. I feel like they really patched bullet bill in this game. And honestly, I kind of get it. Bullet bill was a bit overpowered, especially with how easy it was to catch up with the rest of the race. And I feel like just using it for a little amount of time and still getting around 5th to 6th in a 24-player race makes a lot of sense. Even still, if you're at the bottom of the pack, like in 24th, you get a bullet bill. I think the most you're getting is at least at 16th, 17th place. It really does not do that much this time. And the golden mushroom is by far, still to this day, the most overpowered item in Mario Kart World. This thing makes you go like a lunatic, especially cut through grass and plain fields, or just in general, using it to get through shortcuts. This item is so overpowered. The feathers in this game returning as well, and in my opinion, this is a good item if you're trying to be a person who is technical and trying to use the wall jumps especially as an advantage when using shortcuts in this game. I do think the feather really adds to that. Let's talk about new items, which there are 4. The dash food that I mentioned earlier. There's a coin shell now, which actually is pretty good. It can also be used as a regular green shell if need be, as it can actually hit some racers when racing. The question mark block, which again is another coin based item. Pretty much coins are pretty important, you want that so you can go faster when racing. The Kamek item, which of course I mentioned earlier, is how you unlock certain characters. Again, the item is cool. I actually love that it changes your racer mid-race. I just do wish there was more ways I had more agency in terms of unlocking these certain characters. I really wish it wasn't just locked into the Kamek item. And then the dash food of course is for costumes like I've mentioned earlier. That is pretty much all the items in Mario Kart World, and they all play a factor in how the races are going to go for you. Like I said, the blue shell is still OP, the bullet bill got extremely patched in this game, the golden mushroom does wonders for you if you get it, and I highly recommend using it at the correct times. It can really be good. And just in general, the 4 new items in this game, or that I consider to be new, are good, but a lot of them are pretty much standard, in my opinion. the final thing we're gonna get into with Mario Kart World, and real quick, because there's so much when it comes to it, is its music. Mario Kart World, for me, feels like a fever dream when it comes to its soundtrack and OST. This is ridiculous what was pulled off in this game. When I look back at it, it is surreal how many different kinds of remixes are in Mario Kart World. For example, the regular OST for this game, when it comes to its tracks and everything else, is great, don't get me wrong, I really love it. I also really love this game's title theme. It's really catchy, and I really love listening to it time to time. But now this is where I really get into other music. It is insane how many remixes there are to this OST when it comes to different style of music and the way they've made it work. For example, there's music from the entire 2D line of Mario games, the entire 3D line of Mario games, the most iconic music that you know and love from the whole Super Mario Bros. Franchise, all being remixed in this game, music from prior Mario Kart games, music from other media of Mario as a whole, and just in general, they have managed to remix them in ways that are just insane. I am going to play some of my favorites that are in this game, just to show you the level of care and gratitude that they gave this game's OST. One of the things about me that a lot of people know is that one of the ways to keep me attached to your game is the soundtrack. The OST plays a massive factor in keeping me attached to the game, and my god, Mario Kart World does that extremely well. Let me play some of the tracks for you, just so you see exactly what I mean. Like I said, I can go on and on about this game's soundtrack and its OST, how great it is to hear a soundtrack like this. This is by far one of the best soundtracks in all of Mario. And in all honesty, I think it might go up there and be the best when it's all said and done one of these days. It just has way too many tracks, it has all the iconic songs that you can think of, and it's remixed beautifully and perfectly. And while of course, people will pick and choose which ones are their favorites, I picked out some of my favorites. However, as a whole, I have listened to every track in this game, and my god, some of them are just too insane to believe. But also, the whole soundtrack is just incredible, and really great. It really is worth it, and I do highly recommend honestly sitting down and listening to all of these, as I really do think if you're a person who loves the Mario franchise, you are going to love this game's soundtrack. With that being said, that's pretty much what I have to say about Mario Kart World. I know, it's crazy to believe, but we made it to this point, guys. I just want to say, just in general, Mario Kart World is the most ambitious kart racer I think I have ever played, and I've ever seen, to be honest. What this game was able to pull off is pretty impressive, and I really do hope they continue putting in some more work into the game, of course when it comes to, hopefully, future DLC or a roadmap, just in general. Mario Kart World is incredible, whether it's the character roster and the tracks that it has. Despite some of the criticisms I gave, this game is still absolutely amazing, and it's great with the way they handled this game, especially when it's trying to be another game added to a franchise, where the previous one is being looked at into the standard of the greatest kart racer of all time. There was a lot for this game to hold up to, and I think I'm happy to say people have found pleasure in playing this game. It's a lot of fun, it's very engaging to play with other people, and it's definitely the multiplayer game I'm going to be playing very frequently in early Switch 2 days. We'll see how it goes. I really do hope they handle Mario Kart World with care in the future, especially with what I mentioned earlier. It's the most ambitious kart racer of all time, and if what I showed you in the OST is any indication of that, then I really do think Nintendo can pull off a lot here with Mario Kart World. Like I said, it's already insane ambition to add a whole open world to it, but it's a whole nother thing to actually pull it off. And well, I gotta give them kudos. They did. And it's here. And a lot of people are loving it. Well, I really do think I said my piece on Mario Kart World. Maybe I should honestly go back to it right now and turn on the console and go do another race. It'd be good, especially to feel the comfort of driving around that open world one more time. Feeling free, letting the winds go through, enjoying the ocean breeze in some of these tracks, and just as a whole, just enjoying my time with a great kart racer. I really do hope that what you got from this video, that I do enjoy Mario Kart World, but what I also hope you did what I also hope what you got from this video was that, despite a lot of ambition, it really depends on the execution. And while, yes, of course, some of the execution could have been better, a lot of the execution of this game is very well done. And in my opinion, Mario Kart World would definitely be remembered as a great Mario Kart game. As of right now, where it stands, I think it's in my top 3 in the franchise. Like I said, it's still up in the air, and I really have to consider it more over time, if I do love it more than the other two I mentioned. Wii holds a special place in my heart, and it does a lot that I love from Mario Kart, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is, well, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's going to be very difficult to try to surpass that one there. But, I did love the approach and direction that this game goes for, and if there's one thing I can say Mario Kart World does well, it's just making it pure fun to play with other people. Mario Kart World is the most ambitious kart racer of all time.